Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw, and I'm here with a familiar face. We've had him on many times, but maybe not under these circumstances. Zane Kirby, who is president and CEO of ASTA. Now, we wanted to find out from Zane, first of all, a letter he recently sent to the CDC and the government, which actually is quite an extraordinary letter. We also want to get an update on how ASTA members are doing in terms of getting financial relief, and if most of them have by now. And the third thing is to talk a little bit about the ASTA Global Conference, which is now, I believe, I got to get the names right, but Zane will help me with that, ASTA Global Live or something like that. And that's going to replace the physical conference. That will be the same dates at the end of August. So we're going to find out about all those things and more on Insider Travel Report. First of all, Zane, how are you and where are you?
Well, James, it's nice to be with you, and thanks for the invite. I am in my home. We're in Dunn, Virginia, which is about 10 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. So I go into the office a few days a week, but a few days I stay home here.
And everybody healthy?
Yep, everyone's good. I had Father's Day yesterday, and yesterday was a day of my favorite pizza and chocolate strawberries. So my kids made me feel special, and happy Father's Day.
Yes. I should have joined you for that. That sounds like a nice Father's Day. Now, we wanted to start off by talking about before about a week and a half ago, you put out a letter to the CDC and I think the government in general, rather extraordinary letter, really demanding or asking the government and the CDC to make some calls, to make some decisions, because here we are, cruising is paralyzed, and a lot of other travel is paralyzed, but some travel is coming back. We all know, Disney and Universal and a lot of the hotels around the country are starting to reopen. But cruising clearly is still, at loggerheads with the CDC. And can you talk a little bit about that letter and what was in it and what the purpose was?
Sure, thanks. And we actually sent two letters, James, one to the CDC and one to the administration.
Okay.
So I'll talk about the impetus for that letter to the CDC was actually, I was on a Zoom call much like this one with some folks from the Taiwanese government, and they, in the wake of SARS in 2003, they learned some things about dealing with a pandemic. So one of the things that they did, they took many steps, but one of the things they did was they set up this control center to respond to the pandemic, where 100 epidemiologists and healthcare professionals met every day in a centralized location, and they started poring over the data. And then they would talk and communicate very clearly and effectively as to what sort of decisions that the data that they were taking and that they were recommending based on the data that they were seeing. So, this obviously, the CDC is our vehicle for this for that, and they've become actually the de facto Department of Transportation for the cruise industry by issuing this no sail order.
Right.
So, a lot of rumors have been flying around. We're not exactly sure which of them are true, whether or not the CDC is trying to issue guidance and they're being held up by the administration, or whether the CDC is not issuing clear communication regarding the cruise, the no sail order. So we sent a letter to both entities, one requesting information directly from the CDC, and two to the administration to allow and asking them, telling them, please allow the CDC to do their job, or prod the CDC into doing their job, and issuing this guidance. So the CDC did send us a perfunctory response telling us that they were working on the issue, of course, and anyway, they didn't sidestep us so much as, from the response that we got, James, it appears that a lot is happening behind the scenes between cruise lines and the CDC, but it's something that they want to talk about publicly, which I think is a real shame.
Yeah.
Because they're leaving the entire industry kind of in the lurch here, and they're leaving a lot of consumers who have either rebooked, who are trying to rebook, and replan their lives around these wonderful sort of once in a lifetime vacations. And the CDC is kind of just holding all their cards to their chest and is acting a little like the Sphinx. Just, they're not giving us any answers. So I'm not satisfied with the response that, again, the perfunctory response we received from the CDC. So we're going to keep pressing them.
Yeah, well,
They need to be they need to be more public about this. That's just the long and short of it. They need to be more public about the guidance. They need to be more forthcoming about what they're talking about with the cruise lines, and when we can expect the no sail order to be lifted.
well, clearly the cruise lines are having the same issue because they keep kicking the start date for ocean going down the line. In fact, yesterday or on Friday, the cruise line CLIA announced that the suspension of ocean-going cruising until September 15th, and they always call it a voluntary suspension. And that, I think, is based on the fact that they don't think the CDC is going to come. I think the no-sail order goes to July 24th, but there's no indication that it won't be extended. And it clearly is a major area for travel advisors and for their bookings and for their clients. And they just don't seem to care that much about getting it together to make a decision on this, and they have to do that.
And again, don't want to throw too many stones here, but I think that following a more open communication style, maybe that's not in their sort of normal playbook, but in this environment, that's what we need, and that's what we'll continue pressing the CDC and the administration for.
Well, hopefully you'll have some success, and maybe there could be a restart before September 15th. I know, there are domestic cruise lines, river cruise lines that have plans to start. Some seem to be going ahead with those plans, some not. But that's a small drop in the bucket, of the whole cruise industry. And we really need to get some resolution of this issue for cruising to actually start or restart. So I do hope you can get an adequate answer. I don't have any illusions that you will, but that's another story. I hope it does. They do recognize the importance, because it really is the one industry that has been totally shut down in travel, and there's just and it's a major area for travel advisors for their bookings. So let's move to the CARES Act and get an update on how your members are faring for that government assistance. I know we talked earlier a couple months ago, and it was still a lot. And I actually talked to Evan in your office about about the whole issue. And where does that stand now? Have most of your members been able to get government assistance under one program or another under the CARES Act?
Yeah, it's definitely changed from the time I think that you talked with Evan, and a majority of our members have been able to access either through the PPP program or through the unemployment benefits that are extended by the state that were made available to them through the CARES Act. So yes, the vast majority of members have received relief, which is good. Now, on the flip side of that, it's those who got their payroll protection program loans early. They're sort of getting to the tail end of those funds in terms of where they're lasting. And of course, most or if not all of the unemployment benefits are going to run out at the end of July for the vast majority of our large population of IC members. So it does put some additional pressure on us at ASTA and certainly on the Congress to pass additional relief. And there are lots of different proposals that are flying around the Hill right now. We're in support of a number of them. I'm happy to sort of send you our wish list and our priorities right now. There's a Restart Act right now from Senators Young and Bennett, of Colorado and Indiana, respectively. We really do like this bill. We hope that its provisions will be adopted in the sort of the COVID-4 relief bill that's coming out. What we hear right now is that there's still about $130 billion left in the payroll protection program loans that are available. So if any member has not gotten a loan yet, they should definitely look at that program. And the president just signed the Flexibility Act about a week and a half ago, which means that any loan that they get will almost surely be forgiven. The vast majority or all of them will be forgiven because they're able to stretch out the payment. The loan from 8 weeks of payroll protection to 24 weeks. So any loan that they get, they'll be able to well, most likely the entire thing will be turned into a grant. So it does put more pressure on us. What we're hearing right now is that because there are funds left in the payroll protection program, Congress doesn't feel the need to act immediately, but that and obviously the House has already passed the HEROES Act, a $3 trillion piece of legislation that, again, is kind of a non-starter in the Senate, but the Senate is starting their deliberations right now, and it looks like in the third week of July is when things will really heat up and when the Senate's version of this bill will get written.
Well, that's good. That's good news, and I'm sure you have been working night and day working on extending all this money.
We have a lot. We have a great Evan is a wonderful asset with ASTA and a wonderful Washington insider. He's joined by Genevieve Strand and Lou Altabelli. We have a great team at ASTA, and they are, as you say, working around the clock.
That's great, and hopefully when the money starts running out, there'll be more money available, because it looks like it's not going to end in 8 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever. It's going to have to. We need assistance probably through the end of the year in most cases, as much as it's hard to say that.
That's a good thing about the Restart program is I think that Congress took kind of a scattershot approach with the first several tranches of relief that were offered, and they're available to all. Anyone can get one as long as you apply through a bank, through a qualified bank. There's a growing, I guess, sort of awareness on Capitol Hill that any kind of future aid, and especially with the Restart Act proposed by Senators Young and Bennett,
right.
that further relief should be targeted to industries that are hardest hit. And of course, travel has been the hardest hit, and we are travel-reliant businesses, and we want to make sure that our members are covered in that final act of relief. Because Senator McConnell said that this is going to be the last one. The last bill, he's looking at about $1 trillion price tag. The administration wants $2 trillion. Obviously, and the HEROES Act is already $3 trillion. These are massive amounts of money being thrown around. We want to make sure, though, that our members, being travel-reliant businesses, aren't left out of any relief and are specifically targeted for relief in any COVID-4 relief measure.
Well, we hope that that all comes through and get more relief until we can get back to booking travel. And of course, even then, it takes a while to get those commissions and everything else. Now, another thing I wanted to talk with you about is just earlier this month again, you finally made the call to turn the ASTA Global Conference into a ASTA Virtual Global Conference. And can you tell me what was the reason behind that? Although sometimes that's a bit obvious. And how is this going to work?
Yeah, so a lot of factors in the decision. Obviously, the health and safety of our employees and our members is paramount. And without a sort of universal or nationwide testing regime in place, where we would know that everyone that came to the convention didn't have COVID-19, without any sort of contact tracing, where like they have in other countries, where you can show that you have been tested recently and you don't have the virus. We don't have that in place here in the United States, and so without that, we felt it was a responsible thing to do in order to again give our members the ability to meet, which they love to do, and also provide some really interesting content. ASTA sort of sits at this nexus between government and business, and I think that there's no better time now than to understand and to nurture this relationship, which is one of the reasons why I'm really excited that the sitting Secretary of Transportation, Dr. Chow, is going to join us at the ASTA Global Convention. We're really looking forward to hearing from her. She sets policy for the United States transportation system. And so, again, we're really happy to have her. And I think we're going to have other members of Congress and who are going to perform flybys and sit in and talk with us about policy decisions that they're making. So what we've learned, though, too, James, is that there is a real thirst for online content from ASTA members. They're using this time to sharpen their swords and to get more training. And we've been completely, unbelievably oversubscribed with our online verified travel advisor certification program. Over 600 people have signed up since March 1st, and 100 have passed the entire course, all 9 modules. So we've over 1,500 people join ASTA, 1,500 independent contractors join ASTA over the last 4 months as well. So there's a growing awareness and awakening that the association is doing valuable work for members, and that they're taking advantage of some of the real quality programs we have online. And we know that the Global Convention is going to be in that same vein.
Now, what are the dates for this virtual conference? I think they're the same as the original AGC, right?
Late August, August 26 to 29.
Oh, great. Well, hopefully I'll listen in on. I'd be very interested to hear what some of your speakers say, and what's going to happen. And indeed, it looks almost at this point there's not going to be a live travel advisor conference this year. There are still a few holdouts, but most of them are sort of waiting for whatever contracts to get resolved or something. It's kind of scary that now we have travel where we can't travel to a conference. It's just, what is the travel industry without travel? And hopefully this will be a blip, and then next year everything will come back online the way we want it to be. I assume that's your plan as well, as we head into 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'd love to continue using online platforms to disseminate information to our members. We have I certainly believe in that and believe in progress. But there's nothing like going somewhere and shaking hands and talking with someone face to face in order to establish trust and confidence, and in any business relationship. So I'm a big believer in events, and although we're very sad we won't be at the Washington Hilton this year, we're very much looking forward to being at the Hyatt downtown Chicago next year, and certainly invite you and anyone listening to join us there.
Yeah, well, whether we shake hands or touch elbows, we'll figure it out by then, unless they've found a vaccine, and then we can shake hands to our delight. We'll see what happens. But and then finally, I wanted to just get the latest about what you were telling your members now about the prospects for recovery, given that you don't really have the answers, and I don't think the government or the medical professional community does either. What are you telling your members about how we can get this fixed, or what they should be doing at this time?
Yeah, so a couple things. First off, we need to have the CDC help restore confidence in travel. Now we're 7 months into this pandemic. They have to set the new rules of the road, right? I mean, no one wants regulation, but the reality is, what if masks could mitigate 95% of the risks that you take when you travel, right? Not many of us go on the road and go to a mosh pit and with 1,000 of our best friends. The process of travel, while very personal, is also, I think most of us could travel very safely with just a few precautions that we put in place.
Right.
So the CDC needs, as they learn more about the virus, as they obviously can put those things to paper and can communicate them effectively, that is what's going to restore confidence of travel. So it's going to get all but the most intrepid of travelers back out on the road. So that's one of the reasons why we're leaning on them so hard, and why we'll continue to. Okay. On the other side, it's obviously trying to find as much relief for our members as humanly possible before bounty returns, and that's why we're laser focused on making sure that our members are included in this COVID-4 package.
No, that's great, and I don't know, the image of you in a mosh pit. I'm sorry, that's probably not what you. When is the last time you were in a mosh pit? But
I'm not sure I was ever in a mosh pit.
But the sad thing is that every supplier and every cruise line, every hotel is just coming out of the woodwork with different health and safety measures, and really drilling down. And right now, it's really up to travel advisors to kind of sift through all the things that these people are putting together. And again, it's proving that travel advisors are so crucial to the booking process, because I don't think the consumer has any idea about all these things. I get one of these releases every day, and from a supplier saying what they're going to be doing, or what they have, and what great medical organization they've affiliated with. And it all sounds great, but what's the best, or what is essential? They're all sort of similar, but I think, for travel advisors, I think they have to start sifting through all this and figuring out the best situations for their clients.
The world of travel has got much more complicated, to your point. I mean, there is no worldwide global body that regulates travel. This is all done by bilateral agreements between countries and cities. And so, to your point, the travel ecosystem just got extraordinarily complicated. So I am very bullish on travel advisors for now and for the future, particularly in the future, because of that the level of complexity just went way up. And so, we're actually doing I'll have the first survey results this Thursday, and maybe happy to share them with you and with others. But we're talking to consumers right now about where they're going to turn for expertise, given this new level of complexity. So we obviously want that for people to turn to their trusted ASTA travel advisor. And that's our message.
Absolutely. And it's one of these things where, I think we talked about this before. It takes a crisis to prove once again the value of travel advisors, whether that was 9/11 or the reception. And this is the biggest crisis we've ever faced as a travel industry. And it just proves once again that advisors are crucial to the travel decision making of their clients. Zane, thank you very much for spending some time with us to talk about these issues. I have to say, I thought your letters were extraordinary. I hadn't seen anybody else doing that, and I hope they respond in a more responsive way than they have already, because clearly the cruise industry is really shot right now until they can get this resolved. And I think you may have prodded them into hopefully some resolution of that. But again, great to see you, and hope to see you soon, either virtually or live.
Sounds great. Thanks, James. Stay well.
I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.